What's going on, everybody? We are live for today's AMA. I apologize for it being a few minutes late, ran into a few technical difficulties, but we are now here and I'm joined by Rolando. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going, Greg? How's it going, Freedom Builders?
We are excited as always for today's AMA. It's going to be fun as always. I see there's tons of questions in the chat box since ran into a few technical difficulties getting started. But with that being said, let's not waste any time. So the first one that I see here is I have a product that is selling well. My supplier offers more colors of the item, which I'd like to launch. Amazon's instructions to do so are so confusing. Do you have a good way to list new variants? Yes. Um, I'm trying to think if I can describe this without a screen share though. Let me do this for you, Rob. When we're doing a whole episode just on Amazon Seller Central, and during that, I will give instructions of how to list these new variants because it's a pretty difficult thing to describe just over audio and video here. So let's jump into the next question. What else do we have, Rolando?
Got Nina Gomez from Instagram that asks, what are the top 5 things to look for when considering a supplier? So they're talking about years in business, certificates, transactions, employees, so on and so forth. What would you say are the top 5 things to look for?
Yeah, good question. So we covered all of these in the $1 million case study episode that was released earlier this week. However, just to give you a little bit of a recap, the things that I'm looking for in a supplier are if they're a gold supplier, that's kind of like a requirement now. I prefer that they accept trade insurance because it gives you like a little bit of extra protection there. I want to make sure that the products that they manufacture um, are all similar. And when I say that, I'm looking for a factory that specializes in this particular type of product. So if they sell coffee mugs and electronics and baby towels, they're probably a trading company. They're probably not a manufacturer. So like if I'm ordering baby towels, then I'm looking for a factory that creates like baby products, and they're probably are probably like more specifically kind of like clothing type products or products that involve fabrics. So let's see, those 3 things. I'm also looking for just like general good communication. So good enough English skills that I can communicate effectively with them and they respond pretty quickly. You said 5, which means 1 more. Rolando, is there anything else that we covered?
Uh, well, just to kind of highlight something to cover about the manufacturing trading company, since you mentioned that, Sharon brought up a good point that if typically if it says that they are a trading company and a manufacturer, more than likely they're just a trading company. So one of the key things when you're looking at that is to just make sure that they just are solely a manufacturer in their title or in their description. Um, I think that that would I would say probably the country we talked about where they're
Oh yeah, that's
primarily.
a good one.
If United States, of course, you want that to be as one of their top.
Export
Would say
destinations. Yeah, what Rolando's talking about there is factories that typically import their or export their goods to say like Africa or the Middle East. The quality expectations in those regions of the world are typically not the same, are less so than what people like in North America and Europe and Japan and Australia and these kind of areas expect. So I'd prefer to see them exporting to those regions of the world kind of instead. So all right, lots of questions here. Let's grab one from George Gomez. Greg, I've been talking to manufacturers and I've already got samples sent. Is this when I start negotiating the price, or am I too late? Was I supposed to negotiate the price beforehand? This is a good question. It's not too late to negotiate the price. You can negotiate the price all the way up until you give that final deposit. Now that you've received this sample, I would typically say something like, hey, I've received samples from a few different areas. Like I appreciate yours. You seem great to work with. I want to build this long lasting relationship. However, this price doesn't really leave enough margins for me to like make it worth it, or this other factory is offering a better price. I think those are like a few tips to kind of get you started in your negotiations, but no, it's definitely not too late.
All right, Adam from YouTube says, which is the best option, the RFQ feature or the template to contact the supplier?
I typically just go with the template to contact the supplier. I normally don't really use the RFQ option. I have a few times. However, for whatever reason, I prefer to just kind of like go in there, just search for them and just find the factories and use the template to reach out to them.
Yeah, using both wouldn't doesn't hurt because it just gives you more options to choose from, and then you could. What we always state is we're looking for quantity versus quality at the start. So you're just trying to get as many suppliers out there, reach out to as many as possible in a very short amount of time, and then next week we're going to cover how to thoroughly vet them to ensure that they are in fact a manufacturer that you want to work with.
Oh, Adventurous Human on YouTube says, I'm confused on shipping. Is this calculated by the manufacturer, Alibaba, or a third party? I always ship, I shouldn't say always, whenever I'm doing like ocean freight or air cargo, I always use a third party. If I'm sending air courier, which is like DHL or FedEx or whatever else, then sometimes I pay for that through my factory because they tend to get better rates than what I can. It's not calculated by Alibaba. I think Alibaba now does have like some freight forwarding services. I'm not really familiar with them though, because I've never used them. But yes, it would be up to you through contacting with a freight forwarder to kind of like figure out those rates. And again, I think, when is that, Rolando? 2 weeks from now when we're doing a whole episode on that?
Yeah, 2 weeks from now, so you don't want to miss out. Every episode just builds on the next, so definitely, want to keep following along as we go through this process. I have a funny question here.
Okay.
Graham, it says the bootstrapping boutique says, "Why is Greg in a suit?" I guess that's it's an anomaly to see you in a suit, and
That is very weird. It was weird for me to see myself in a suit. That's pretty rare. Stay tuned to find out. We recorded kind of a funny little segment where I'm wearing this suit, so you'll have to stay tuned to find out. Sal Velasco says, does trade assurance only apply to Alibaba Pay? Yes. Trade assurance only applies to Alibaba Pay. If you pay through just a wire transfer or PayPal or whatever else, trade assurance does not protect you by doing so.
Carla from YouTube asks, "Are the shippers in Alibaba experienced with Amazon FBA?"
I've never used the shipping services through Alibaba. I guess they do have some now. My guess is everyone in the world has a certain familiarity with Amazon FBA now. However, I imagine there's probably other freight forwarders that have more experience or can probably offer you a better price, but I can't speak from experience since I haven't used the shipping services personally through Alibaba.
And we will definitely dive deep into freight forwarders, which is, yeah, a couple weeks out the road. So
Yeah.
definitely want to watch that.
Chris says, is it offensive for Chinese manufacturers to find out from you that you're shopping around for the best deal? Absolutely not. I mean, this is part of business. And I mean, you're in this, I assume, to sell these goods to make money. This is common business practice to shop around for the best manufacturer at the best deal and whatever else. So no, I think absolutely not that I would definitely say it's not offensive at all. Like, you're a business person looking to get the best deal so you can maximize your profits.
All right. Here, let's get some Facebook questions. Sannon from Facebook says, "Are gold suppliers expensive compared to suppliers without the gold status?"
I don't think there's any correlation to the price of the products that the supplier sells to you and their gold or gold plus status or whatever else. The cost that they have to pay to Alibaba to achieve those statuses are relatively small in the big scheme of things. So I don't think that cost is like passed on to the end user.
You brought up a good point in this last episode where we really don't differentiate. We like, at a minimum, that gold status, gold supplier status, but the gold plus really isn't a make or break in our decision that they have to be gold plus. Just gold supplier, that's the starting point. And if your results turn to be, that you're there, you still have several hundred suppliers available, maybe you might want to narrow it down that they also offer trade assurance. So start filtering out. Start with with a broad list, and then just start narrowing down to a nice narrow list.
Totally. Brent Carroll says, why do you use a freight forwarder over DDP? Is it cheaper? So I have never used DDP. I believe that's like duties paid. I don't know what it stands for, but I think it's like duties paid or taxes or dues paid like on arrival. And like we've said a few times, we're going to be talking about all these different types of shipping options when we do the episode in 2 weeks. However, the way I look at it is there's essentially three shipping options that you'd be interested in using. One, let's call it an air courier or air express. This is like DHL, FedEx, TNT, UPS. These are like the air couriers that you're used to using. And when you use one of these companies, the process is very familiar to you. It's just like how you use them right now, right? So I mean, you pay your money to them, they put the labels on, and it ships door to door. You don't have to worry about like any of the hassles or anything else associated with it. The second option is let's call air cargo. And this is still sent on airplanes, but instead of taking like 2 to 4 days, which like Air Express does, air cargo probably takes 8 to 10 days, depending on how backed up it is. This just goes through a different process. A freight forwarder has to set up these shipments. So these are booked through freight forwarders. Lastly, there's ocean shipments. These are going to be the cheapest, especially if it's really big and bulky. These again are going to have to be booked through freight forwarders. The shipping time is very slow. It takes about a month, but it's definitely the cheapest, especially if you're selling big, heavy things. Okay, so those are like your different shipping options. You know, if you're selling something very small and lightweight, like for example, just little bracelets or whatever else or something, you might just choose just to ship it like DHL or FedEx or whatever, just because like if you're selling like a little jewelry bracelet for $30 and the shipping's only like 50 cents because it's so small, lightweight, yeah, who cares? Like just ship it, the easiest way to get it there quickly. But if you're shipping, like my bamboo marshmallow sticks, it's very cost prohibitive to ship that kind of like air courier. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit.
All right. I'm excited because we're getting a ton of questions today. I don't know if we'll be able to get through them all, but we'll do our best. All right. So Alexandru asks, based on your experience, it's likely that the seller would support you with the design of a customized packaging, or you need to provide the graphics based on package. So I
Yeah,
would
good
say yes.
question.
They typically they if it's a product that's already in existence that they use, then you can get dimensions directly from them, and you can you just you give them your designs. But if you're redesigning a product, as we are with the customer driven innovation, we have to provide them with the exact dimensions and so on and so forth. Depends on which direction you're going with your product.
All right. Adam asked on YouTube, we're having initial communications with the suppliers. One supplier is charging us $60 for a sample, another wants to pay 500. Both suppliers are Gold Plus. Any ideas why the discrepancy? So it could be for a few reasons. I would guess that the $500 one is going to have to custom make you the sample, whether or not that means like a new mold or a new piece of machinery or whatever else. If you're paying more money for a sample, like $500, $1,000, $2,000, that's usually the case. Whereas the company charging you $60, that's probably like an item they've already kind of made before or like already set up for it. And that's why they're essentially, if it's $60, that's you pretty much are just paying for cost of shipping. I don't know how big and bulky this is or whatever else, but that sounds about the price to ship, just for like the shipping cost for a product from China to the US. So that's why I'd guess there's a discrepancy there. It's not necessarily that like one's shady or that one shouldn't be Gold Plus or whatever else.
Cool. So Alec on Facebook asks, how much do you differentiate a product? Go as far as differentiate design, color, just bundle to.
Yeah, so you can do all of the above. What we recommend is that you read the reviews, you find out what people don't like about the product, and then you make your changes based off of that. Okay. So maybe people like I'm a huge fan of just like give people what they're looking for, like what they're asking for. And they usually ask for these things in the negative reviews. Okay. So if they're saying like, man, I love everything about this product, but I really want it to be gray instead of white, then doing gray is a great option. If they say, man, I love this product, but I can't believe they didn't include batteries with it, then bundling's a great option. Okay. If they don't like something else, like we're doing with like our keyboard tray, then that could be an option of just improving on the product.
All right. See, I have Shakir. Now, we'll cover this greater detail. Maybe we could touch on it today, but for a future episode. Question is, what are your recommendations when negotiating terms? Do you guys recommend inspection services for every shipment? Can air shipment ever cost less than ocean freight after total cost?
All right, so a lot of
So
questions there.
it
The first one was, can you
Incoterms is the
negotiate
first one.
Incoterms? Incoterms don't really need to be negotiated. Um, you can just ask like, what would the price be in X Works and what would the price be with FOB? Okay, free on board. The next question was, what was it, Rolando?
Do you guys know, do you guys recommend inspection services for every shipment?
I okay, so this is how I think about it. Like my first like 2 or 3 years selling on Amazon, I never did any inspections and I don't really have any core stories associated with it. All right. There were a few times where like I had little problems here or there, but like nothing super major. Okay. So it's not something that's required. The way I like to look at it, it's really about how much risk you're willing to take on. So if you're placing an order and the order is like $800, then does it really make sense to pay an extra $200 for an inspection? It's like, I don't know, that jacks up the price by what, like 25%. Okay. So in that scenario, I might feel comfortable not doing an inspection. If I'm placing an order for like $10,000, then all of a sudden, like, okay, $200, that's only an extra 2%, if I'm doing my math right. And like when that's the case, it's like, okay, like I would prefer to do an inspection before it leaves port. All right. So it's really up to you and like how much risk you're willing to take on. It's always really nice to have an inspection. I think you just have to ask yourself, like, is it worth like an extra $200? Like they almost always find stuff wrong. Sometimes it's just not stuff that's not that big of a deal. Like on my baby towel inspection, like the little threads were hanging off a little bit too much. Like they found that in the inspection and like they went back and like cut them a little bit shorter. Was that really a big enough deal? Would have that ever have led to any bad reviews? Probably not. But it does kind of like keep the factory like honest and like make sure that they like have high quality standards. So that's the way I think about it.
Yeah, that's it. Having that third party inspection is definitely what it does is that keeps the factory honest. And I think the third question here on that one, the three-part question was, can air shipment ever cost less than ocean freight after total cost?
Yes, it could. Ocean freight, there are a number of flat fees associated with it. You have to pay like a $69 fee for arriving at port and $20 to unload and $40 for this and whatever else. So like if it was like a small shipment, like just like a couple cartons, then actually probably would be cheaper. I think the rule of thumb that Flexport uses is if it's less than 200 kilograms, they typically recommend shipping it just using like an air courier service instead of using a freight forwarder. So that would be the case where that's kind of true. So, all right. KL McLean said, hey guys from Sydney where it's 5 a.m. Wow. Thanks for joining us so early.
Awesome.
If you're using a supplier from a site like Alibaba or similar, are you concerned that your supplier can easily be found and therefore your product copied? It is very easy to find suppliers. So that's like something you're going to have to deal with. If someone wants to copy your product by using sites like Alibaba, like I could find a factory to manufacture me like anything that you could ever imagine in the entire world. So that's not like the hurdle that's going to stop people from ever copying your product. And you just need to understand that. The other thing you have to understand is there's literally hundreds of millions of products on Amazon. There's tons of products to go around. There's plenty of products for everyone on this AMA right now, and then some. Typically what holds people back is just like it takes some time to launch new products. It takes capital to launch new products. It just takes general work. So, I mean, that's why there's opportunities available for everyone. Like Amazon's growing so quickly. There's so much demand there. There's only so many sellers. Like it feels like a lot because there's like 100 or 200 of you on this AMA right now. But the truth of the matter is only a few of you guys are actually going to follow through and take action. I wish it was all of you guys, but that's just the fact of the matter. So there's lots of opportunity to go around here. So no, whether or not my supplier is listed on Alibaba, that's not like a hurdle that I feel like protects me.
And when I look at this, I always come at it from like an abundance mentality. That definitely there's more opportunity out there than not. But it is a matter of the people that are the go-getters, the ones that take massive action. Those ultimately, you know, launch their first product, their second product, the third product, and so that's how you start building this to scale. Is yeah, it starts with that first product launch and just getting it out there, and yeah, doing your product research, following all this whole process, but just getting it out there and not delaying.
Cool. Chris V said, have you ever visited the manufacturers in China? Yes, I've been to China a number of times. It's a very educational and rewarding experience. It's not required by any means. I sold on Amazon for a few years before ever going to China and visiting a manufacturer. That being said, when you go, it's like really cool to see more about like the culture in China and to get to see these factories in real life and meet your sales rep and shake their hand in real life and everything else. So if you guys ever get the ability to do so, I recommend everyone to go just because it's like a very amazing educational and cultural experience, but it's by no means required.
There's also fairs that happen that throughout the world, even in the United States, of suppliers coming to the United States, hitting those up once in a while. But ultimately, yeah, checking out China. I actually lived there for a year, and it's just really it's that the culture immersion was amazing. How how to communicate more effectively with them and so on. So great experience.
All right. Colin says, is there a rule of thumb for the cost of air versus ocean we can use for early product evaluation? Rule of thumb you can use for air is $7 per kilogram. Ocean is a lot more challenging to have a general rule of thumb on because the rates fluctuate wildly depending on the time of year. Like right now, they're actually pretty expensive because people are shipping a lot of containers for Q4. Um, if you just want like a general rule of thumb, you could probably use like 80 cents or $1 per kilogram. However, keep in mind that's only for probably like bigger shipments, like at least a few hundred kilograms, because there are a lot of flat fees associated with shipping ocean. So it's a little bit harder to calculate those versus just like a typical like air courier, but you could use those as general rules of thumb.
Got Debbie asks, be eligible for the September specials for Alibaba. Having need to have the order in and finalized, be able to take advantage of specials. I would say yes. That the answer to that is yes. That's why they really make that push at the start of September for their Super September deals. Is and so the goal is to have everything finalized. Now remember, it's not the end all be all. It's great to take advantage of those deals, but it's not a make or break. But this is a good time if you're at that stage already.
All right, cool. I didn't know the answer to that, so thanks, Rolanda. All right, Frank WK said, when it comes to instruction manual and safety labels, what is the best way to ensure the manufacturer has done their due diligence? Can you rely on that? What is your recommendation? Frank, it's ultimately up to you, not the manufacturer, to make sure that you have good instructions, any respective safety labels. Okay, so again, we're gonna do a whole episode on kind of like on packaging and how to find these different types of things. But I know that's not what you came for. You didn't come to the AMA to hear me say we're gonna do an episode down the road on it. Um, good places to figure out which of these like safety labels or whatever else you need. One good place is a inspection company. So you can use like Asia Inspection or VTrust, or there's a number of other ones if you just Google them. You can ask them what inspections they recommend for your particular product, and they can give you a little insight about like what safety labels would be required. Unfortunately, I don't know of any other like one singular good reference point to figure this type of thing out. Another good thing is you can do is you can just order some of your competitors' products, especially like bigger and more reputable brands. You can order their products and see what they're doing as far as any like, I think what you're talking about is like little like UL certifications and little things like that. And then you can ultimately ask your factory if they already have those. If they don't, they'll are usually willing to get them for you at no cost to you. Sometimes there is a cost to you, but oftentimes there's not.
Right. That hey, Michael asks, should we prefer manufacturers with your own.
No, there's no need to do that. I never use, to be honest, I actually don't know what an export license is, but I never use like my factory's like recommended freight forwarder or whatever else. I don't like export through my factory. I always do it through my freight forwarder. Whether or not there's like some kind of license in China required to export, I have no idea. I'm not familiar with like Chinese laws and regulations around that kind of stuff. But I mean, if they've exported goods to the U.S. before, they know what they're doing. They know how to handle that, and they'll figure everything else out that they need with a freight forwarder.
Correct. That would be the freight forwarder. I would also like to add to that, since we're talking about license certifications, if it is a product within a category that requires certain certifications, absolutely, because you could have something electronic and there's different certifications. That's the only area that I definitely, and they'll have their certificates right on their mini site, and you could reference that.
On Facebook, Judy TC says, if I'm getting a sample, do I get a sample for my customized product or their generic product? My supplier says they can't provide me with a custom product with packaging. Yeah, so this is a common thing that you'll run into. And what's going on here is, so this is really very product specific, okay? So if there is a new mold required or something that's very like custom, they typically like won't make that mold until they're ready to do your particular like production run, or you've at least put down like a deposit for it. So different factories work differently. Sometimes they say like, okay, there's $1,000 mold fee and then it's $2 per unit. Other factories don't even tell you about the mold. They'll just say like, okay, it's $2.50 per unit. And the cost for them to create the special mold for you is already baked into your per unit price. In either of those scenarios, they'll usually say like, well, we can't really make you like, it costs us $1,000 to build this mold. So like, we can't build this mold just to give you a sample, like unless you were to pay for it first. So that's oftentimes what's happening, that like they need like a piece of tooling or a mold or to change their production line or whatever else to accommodate your particular order. And that's why they can't make you like a single customized unit right now. So usually in scenarios like this, what I typically do is like I get some samples of their other products. I kind of verify the quality of them. I verify that they've been good to work with, and this is who I want to be working with. And then after all of that, I'll just say like, okay, I'm willing to like put down my deposit with you. However, I want to see a sample, like the first item off the production run. I want you to send it to me to make sure it's like up to my quality standards before you go ahead and like make 1,000 of these units. So that's typically what I do. I think what you'll also find, like I found in the past, is if you find some other factories to work with also, sometimes other factories will already have like the tooling or whatever's required to make this production run. And they actually can get you a sample with everything except like, say, like your logo or something else. So that's another thing you can think about, is trying to communicate with other factories. But depending on your product and your product type and everything else, it's the scenario that you described in your question isn't that uncommon.
In fact, our first sample of manufacturers that we're testing out was a bolt, our current variation. Yeah, you just want to I just want to test out the factory itself to see packaging it comes in, because they will package it according to what that existing specifications are. So just looking at that whole experience and saying, hey, you know what, I could work with this company out, maybe not.
Yeah.
Long to send me the sample. The box, isn't properly insulated. They didn't, there's a lot of things that you could immediately rule out by getting that.
Yeah. That's actually a good point. I don't think I've ever seen a sample of my packaging until like I've committed to place an order with the company and probably put down a deposit. Because same thing, like the way they print mostly like these boxes, at least in bulk, is they make like a different plate for each different color. And like, they're not going to make that plate for you until like you have to make like, or until, you do like 1,000 boxes or 2,000 boxes or whatever else. So like, they can't like make that special plating just to print you off one sample for like 20 or 50 bucks or whatever you expect. That's just not realistic. So I just like, after same thing, I'll just like have them either send me pictures or send me one of the kind of like first boxes that they'd print off there.
Got Michael says, should we send out follow-up RFQs if not enough manufacturers respond first time? I can answer this because I've used RFQs quite a bit. And typically what happens with RFQs is they almost are, they go into like a database, separate database altogether, where manufacturers are almost, are reaching out to you. So sending it out once is all you need to do for one particular product. But if it is in fact something else, of course, then you'd have to see if there's some variations that you would like for the product, then it would be a different RFQ. But that being said, if you're not getting enough results, that's where you just need to start communicating direct, and just contacting multiple suppliers, just direct. That's always the best approach. You don't want to rely on the RFQ just because it simplifies the process. You don't want to rely on it.
Cool. Rolando, there's a few people in the chat box saying your audio is cutting in and out a little bit. Can you try turning up the gain on your mic? That might help a little. All right. So Chris V said, have you ever been gotten told no for specific changes in the product? Yes, this happens. Like if the factory's not able to perform those changes, then they can, just tell you no. that's part of it. Frank WK Jason, Jungle Scout, you guys are awesome for taking the time to answer our questions. Thank you for taking the time. It is greatly appreciated. Frank, thank you very much for tuning in. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for the shout out. I've got Salima on YouTube asking, how many suppliers should you contact minimum? In the action items for this week, I put 25 minimum. Now that's bare minimum. I wouldn't even, I mean, that's just like a starting point for me. But the more the better. Like I said, we're looking for quantity, not quality at this stage. So try not to vet too many companies right now. Don't rule any companies out quite just yet. Wait for those responses, because that's what's going to be the determinant. You have that, you have the template that you downloaded through our website, and now you could just get that out to as many possible manufacturers.
Yeah, and just to clarify there, before we actually go with a factory, we definitely are looking for quality, but that's like the way we like to do it is just contact a whole bunch of factories to get started. And then after some of them start responding to us and seem good to work with, that's when we like go that extra mile to actually vet them. So we are looking for quality before we actually end up using them. But Rolando's just talking about in the first stage here, we're looking for quantity. We're going to try to contact as many as we can.
And next, talk about how to find those quality manufacturers.
Yeah. Vim said, how long does it take to go back and forth with the sample, production sample, etc.? No one likes this answer, but it really does depend. It really just depends on the factory that you're working with, how backed up they are, what kind of changes you're looking to make, what the product is. If I were to give you a rough ballpark, maybe a month. If you're making like a whole bunch of changes and you're going back and forth with multiple samples, it could even take a few months. If you do it really quickly, then maybe just a few weeks. But like if we're just talking about general ballpark, I'd say like 1 month is probably average.
All right. We've got Samantha asking, once you have some quotes from suppliers, how do you get shipping estimates to see what the combined cost would be for placing an order?
So your freight forwarder will be able to give you as many shipping quotes as you need. So all you'll need to know are the dimensions, the weight, and where it's being shipped from and where it's being shipped to. And after you have all those things, your freight forwarder can hook you up with a quote, and then you can figure out your margins.
Getting a lot of shipping questions, but that's awesome because we got some action takers here. So it's pretty exciting.
Totally.
Here, we got there, Greg?
Oh, a bunch. Let's see. The next one from Adventurous Human. Is it common to pay the manufacturers Alibaba fees, or are they being sneaky? So I'd say it's uncommon. I would prefer, if they were asking me to pay their Alibaba fees or whatever, I assume you're talking about using Alipay and you're probably using something besides a bank transfer and they want you to pay the fees associated with that, I'd say that is happens, but is more uncommon. At the end of the day, though, like the way I always think about everything is like whether or not they tell you about certain fees or whatever else, like that's usually all baked into the cost some way or another. So like if they're still the best to work with and still offer you like a really good price, even if they're telling you have to pay 2% or whatever else, then like I wouldn't be totally against it. But I will say that that's probably like more common of a factory like trying to sort of take advantage of smaller sellers. Like if you had like an at walmart.com email address, like they wouldn't be asking you to pay the extra 2% Alibaba fees like at the end of the day.
I've got Shakir on here on YouTube asking, would you say that a personal phone call or video chat with your supplier is crucial to build a relationship? If so, how does one build a relationship if their English is minimal?
I don't think that it's required to have a video call or a phone call with the suppliers. Actually, this is less common for me. Maybe this is just because my personal preference of communication isn't hopping on the phone or on a video call. But yeah, there's lots of factories that I work with that I've only ever talked to through like instant messenger, like WeChat or Skype Messenger. Uh, that's actually my like most common method. So no, it's not required.
Yeah, I think that it's actually a great way to for them to communicate effectively. They prefer to do something in written form. One, they have a track record of what it is that you communicated to them, and two, for them, it's just what they're most comfortable. I lived in China, and I know that a lot of times, but they wanted just to practice their English with me, but they were excellent at writing. Their grammar was phenomenal, so they were just great writers, but they just wanted more practice. So that being said, video chat is not a requirement in building that relationship.
All right. Let's see here. D. McDuffie says, is there a directory of manufacturers that specialize in custom products? Yes, it's called Alibaba. um, kind of seriously though, like Alibaba or Global Sources or any other website or marketplace that's full of factories, they're all willing to make customizations. Like these are factories, this is where they're being manufactured, so they can adjust the way they make these products specifically for you. All right, this one is from Bill Jeffries. It says, I've been watching the older UK $1 million case study alongside this series. I decided to look at how well the sleeping bag, so this is what we launched during the UK $1 million case study season 3, and it's only selling about 1 per day. Does anyone know why it's doing so badly and being left out to die? I'm not feeling very inspired to see that if I follow along with all the videos and steps with a great product, et cetera, that it could potentially be dead in a few months. Good question, Bill, and I'm glad you asked this actually. So we've now launched 3 products throughout the $1 million case study. We've launched the bamboo marshmallow sticks. I checked today and it sold, I think, about 740 units in the past 30 days. We've done the jungle snugs, which are our hooded baby towels. We have 4 colors. 2 of the colors are selling about 150 a month. The other 2 colors are selling about 75 a month. So in total, that's about roughly 450 units per month. The sleeping bags were selling really well before we went out of stock. So we were only predicting we were going to sell about 300 units per month. And the first like 3 months, they actually sold, I think, like twice that amount. So we ran out of stock way quicker than what we were expecting due to a number of issues. It took a while to get back in stock. And then they came back in stock last month after being out of stock for, I think, about 2 or 2.5 months, which is a pretty long time. So to be honest, we now need to do either like another giveaway or be a little bit more aggressive on PPC because they haven't started selling well again, just organically. So this oftentimes, I'd say like 50% of the time, this happens when you run out of stock for a long period that you'll have to kind of like do like a relaunch to get them selling well again. So that's, to be perfectly honest with you, that's just what we need to do now. We need to give away some more units on JumpSend to get it started to selling well. If I'm being fully honest and transparent with you, It's also kind of because the person managing our case study products is Kim, if you remember her from the UK $1 Million Case Study. She recently left Jungle Scout, and to be honest, they've kind of just been left out to dry. No one's really been looking at her, taking care of them. So that is something that we need to change. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. So yeah, we're going to start properly managing them again. We're going to do another giveaway to get them selling it well again. And I'm confident we can get them back at least selling about that 300 units per month. I don't remember off the top of my head the seasonality associated with sleeping bags. I don't remember if we're in like a down month or not. I wouldn't guess so, but that could potentially be part of the reason as well. So that product is definitely not dead. We just need to do like another relaunch real quick to get it selling well again.
Also, keep in mind that with these $1 million case studies, you could be launching products at a much faster pace. We're trying to document every step of the way for you. So, as you can see, you're getting one product at a time, so that you can see exactly how we go through this whole process. But here at Jungle Scout, we have multiple sellers, Amazon sellers, and so of course they they're very aggressive in their approach. So
Yeah. Jasco said, love the Alibaba session. The host had me worried regarding keeping all conversations on Alibaba's platform. Then hearing you guys say it's not necessary, little confused and skeptical now. Yeah, this is from Jasco on YouTube. So we really appreciate, Alibaba coming on and being able to ask them some questions. And again, like we have like unbiased opinions here. They didn't sponsor that episode. They didn't pay or anything else. So we're trying to just bring you guys the best information. So of course, Alibaba wants you to use their platform for everything, right? That's just the nature of the game. They want you to spend more time on their platform. That's how these businesses monetize their platforms and do better. So they're of course gonna say that. She did even admit though that like it's not required. It's not even required for trade assurance. It is a little bit more organized to keep all the communications through their platform. I do agree with that. But at the same time, like I know from my personal use that I can usually get better and faster response times using Skype Messenger or WeChat. Okay, those are two other messaging platforms that aren't associated with Alibaba. Of course, like WeChat is a big Alibaba competitor. WeChat has a payment system just like Alipay does. So, they're like competitors. That's like in the US, Amazon competing against Google or whatever else, right? So of course they're not gonna recommend to like use WeChat like to communicate with your suppliers. So you don't need to be skeptical. That's just the name of the game. That any big company like that, just like yeah. So I mean that's the lowdown with it.
right. I've got a question from J. Michael, and it says we have narrowed it down to two suppliers. Supplier number one has a bit better price, but 2 week longer lead time. And supplier number two has a higher price, but can get it to us in time for the holiday season. Who would you choose?
This one's up to you. I think you got to use your own judgment and gut with this one. It sounds like there's no bad option. I'd probably just decide how important that is to you to kind of like get going with it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, the holiday season would definitely help. There's a nice little bump that the holiday season provides, but of course, if it costs more, you just got to kind of weigh the pros and the cons. Sometime down the road, you could possibly renegotiate pricing if you're buying, larger quantities, so on and so forth. You could probably work with them down the road. So that's one option to consider, but definitely got to weigh the pros and cons for that one.
Lucas on YouTube says, question, sea shipping quote from our supplier is way lower than a freight forwarder. The freight forwarders tell me it's common practice for manufacturers as the cargo is held in Chinese freight forwarders, and then they may ask extortionate fees to release to customs. Who is saying the truth? I always prefer to use a freight forwarder. I have heard a number of horror stories about they only tell you like the are some less just kind of like less reliable or less trustworthy type companies. Maybe this is the freight forwarder that your factory works with, maybe not, maybe it's perfectly legit, I don't know. But I have heard of these stories of like they'll only give you like the quote of what it costs for the actual sea shipment and not like all of like the customs and unloading and all that kind of stuff for after it arrives at the port, which is like actually the majority of the costs. So I always just use a freight forwarder that I know and trust, so I don't ever have to worry about this stuff. That's why I've never had any horror stories associated with it. That's what I would probably recommend, but I don't know if you really like your factory and they've promised you that there's no other fees associated with or anything else, you can choose to go with them. But pretty much like all of the big companies that I know of that ship lots of containers and do lots of ocean shipments, they all ship directly with freight forwarders and not with the factory's recommended freight method. All right, Rolando. It's almost top of the hour, which means it's about the 45-minute mark since we started a little late. What's the deal with the giveaways?
All right, man, let's go ahead and let's give some swag out. Who wants some swag? All right, so here's the random pick, and it goes to J. Michael Jeffords. So you are the lucky winner. Come on down. So you're gonna get the JS Pro Chrome extension. What you'll need to do, as well as some swag. So you'll need to contact us at freedombuilders@junglescout.com. That's Freedom Builders with an S at junglescout.com. Claim that prize.
Cool.
And
looks like we have one more. Alexandra Bogdanovic, sorry if I butchered your name a little bit there, has been super active in the Facebook case study group this week and in the AMA. So you are this week's winner of the Jungle Scout Pro. So again, Alexandra, just email us at freedombuilders@junglescout.com. We'll get you hooked up with your prize. We're 2,000 members strong. Rolando, can you believe that in the Facebook group?
It's amazing. And you guys are just all chiming in. I can see the synergy. Everybody's just helping each other out. I wish I could answer all your questions in there, and Greg could be in there answering all your questions, but as you can imagine, that's impossible. But I can see that everybody's super supportive, and I try to get in there as often as I can to answer as many questions. But that's what the AMAs are for, is to get through as many of those questions that you may have, and definitely tackle one at a time.
I see there's over 600 people who have submitted their case study action items, which is fantastic. If you guys aren't familiar with the Amazon Seller Seed Fund, what we're doing is we want to help you guys get started with your business. And we know for a lot of you guys, the part that's holding you back is the startup capital required. So we're giving away 3 sums of money. It's up to $2,500, right, Rolando? I think I said that wrong once. Up to $2,500. What you do is you submit your action items each week using the hashtags MDCS challenge and hashtag Freedom Builders. That's how we can find you and know you're submitting your action items, and that enters you. Each time you do that, you get 1 entry into our Amazon Seller Seed Fund giveaway. At the end of this season of the $1 Million Case Study, we're going to choose 1 winner or 3 winners, sorry. 3 winners to win the money to help them get started on their business. Is there anything I forgot there, Rolando?
Well, we're looking to do something a little bit different going forward with that, because we're getting so many submissions. We want to streamline it just a bit. We would like that if you're going for the weekly action items, if you could actually put them in the thread of the weekly announcement. So every week I go in there and I put what your action items are for the week. If you could just drop in the comments your photo with the hashtags, and that will also just help streamline the whole process, because keeps it a little more organized.
Cool. And we have one question. I said the questions were done, but let's do one more. This one's from Jasco on YouTube, and I just saw this, and this is something that I'm pretty passionate about, so I want to go ahead and answer it real quick. And this is, hey guys, when I mention this journey to my friends and family, they think it's a pipe dream and or a scam. What do you say to the doubters? And this is a really good question, and I remember early on in my entrepreneurial journey that I got the same types of responses. I remember I was very excited about becoming an entrepreneur and getting started with this business. And at the time I was working as a civil engineer, and it was a very corporate setting, and everyone around me, and like actually all the people that I surrounded myself with at the time, had that same type of mindset. So I went to college, I went to university to become a civil engineer. I think people around me in that environment had the same type of mindset. I graduated and got a job at a corporate company, and everyone there had that same kind of mindset. So I think what happens, Jasco, is what's going on is you're surrounding yourself by people who very much have that mindset that the only way to either make money or achieve financial or time freedom is by working in a kind of like a corporate type setting, and the new way is a scam or a pipe dream or you can't do it or whatever else, right? What I would recommend to you, Jasco, is to start finding other people who have been successful with this, for you, that are very relatable to you. So, like you're watching this right now, you're seeing me, and maybe like right now, I'm not super relatable to you because I'm talking to you through YouTube and I have, like a nice camera in front of me and whatever else. But what happens though, I think if you go to, for example, like if you go to like meetup.com and find other entrepreneurs like in your particular area, or you go to conferences, or you find people who live near you through the Facebook group, what ends up happening is you start developing these new relationships with other people who are like one step ahead of you. So maybe they recently launched their business and they've had a certain level of success for you. And what happens is you start talking to and meeting these people, and it's like, wow, they were just like I am like a year ago. Like they're just one step ahead of me. They're very relatable to me. They have the same worries that I have, and their friends and family were telling them it was a pipe dream. And now they've gotten started with this business and they're having a success with it. And it's really now like kind of like changed their lives. So that's what I'd recommend to you, because meeting up with these people in real life, I think just has like a whole different impact than like talking to them in the chat box right now or talking to me through this ask me anything type session. That's when you can see that there's like, I think that's like, at least for me, that's when it like really hit me like, wow, these are other just real people. They're very relatable. They're just one step ahead of me. They had the same concerns that I had. They had the same problems. They're running into the same speed bumps. They're hitting like the highs and the lows of the entrepreneurial journey, just like I am, but they made it through that, and they've, now they've had this level of success that I want to achieve. So that's all I have to kind of say about that, Jasco. But yeah, it's the hardest part about the early days of entrepreneurship is the mindset, because you have all these different mixed signals. You're listening to Rolando and I explain like how to go about doing this journey, but at the same time, there's other people telling you that you're crazy. So yeah, that's kind of what I have with. And that's what we have to leave with. So thank you guys all very much for tuning in. Rolando, it's been fun. If you guys enjoyed this, please give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. Rolando, am I forgetting anything? Is this it?
This is it. Keep crushing it, Freedom Builders.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day. See ya.